What is up, dudes? Welcome back to the completely generic yugituber Banlist prediction video that we all do. We all love it. What are you gonna say? I mean, I can't really say much about this. It's Banlist season, and I'm kind of excited to see what the new format is looking like. So this is just a video I always get excited for. I think every duelist does. If you do play semi-competitively, you always have some sort of in your mind like, oh man, show me these decks getting slapped so that my deck can rise on up if you play, especially if you're more of a rogue player. So just a little, prerequisite for before we start the video. I do want to say I'm not really talking about taking anything off the ban list. I'm talking about specifically stuff that I think should be on the ban list. Actually, I'm doing it a different way. I'm actually going to go through every card that I think almost anybody would be looking at to possibly put on the ban list and talking about where I think they should be. So I'm just everything I'm showing you I don't think should be on the ban list. I'm just going to give my opinion on whether or not I think it should. So let's jump right into it. We'll start with the 4 meta decks because that's usually where you start. You start with the best decks. You try to limit their ceiling so that other decks can compete at a more fair, we'll call fair, quote unquote, level. So we'll start with some Orcus stuff. This is like one of the most popular decks at the moment. We'll start with Nightmare Mermaid. So Nightmare Mermaid's kind of an older card by now as far as like meta standards go. I mean, it's been there since Flood? So we're well over a year at this point, but it didn't really become relevant at all until we got Nightmare, the new Nightmare monster. Can't remember her full name because she's such like a undertone card of like the archetype. But it's very, very powerful. It feels like if they resolve this card, the duel's over. And for that main reason, I think this card should probably get banned. Get the big ol' X. Not that I hate this card, but for a card like this to literally just require any 2 monsters and then be able to make this, and then if this resolves, you probably win the duel. Like for a win condition so easy to get, such low resource win condition, I feel like it shouldn't be that easy. Like this should not lead you to a board of like 3 big monsters with an Omni Negate and 2 monster negates at the very least, with like a Babel on the field. Like you shouldn't be able to get that. Possibly a Time Thief redo or like so much like value out of just resolving one card. I think that's just too powerful. I don't think we need a card like this in our game. So I'm going to say give it the big ol' X. Gone. Next up is the other card that most people are looking at for Orcus in general is the Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardi. So this is a pretty insane card. And I don't want to sound like a stickler, but I kind of want this card to get banned too. I kind of think this card should get banned too. For the sole purpose that like it gets you so much resources, so many resources, and it's completely generic. Well, not completely generic, but it takes any 2+ dark monsters. You know how easy that is to do in Yu-Gi-Oh nowadays? You could do this with a non-dark deck just by using dark Link monsters and then making him. Like Link Karibo, and is Link Spider dark? I think Link Spider might be Earth. You could literally take Link Karibo and any Link 2 dark and like a Beat Cop, both like almost completely generic, and go into this thing. And then this thing gets you so much value. You get at least 2 Fog Blades, like 2 just monster negations straight up, which is pretty insane. So I think the right thing to do is to ban this card as well. I'm not sure if we'll see this card get banned yet. I think it will be at some point, just because it can be abused in any dark deck specifically, and dark decks tend to be like at that highest level. There's always like a dark deck in the meta, like there just is. It's the most popular type. It has the most generic support. It's so easy. I mean, and I feel bad because for all the Blackwing players, the Raid Raptor players looking forward to the new Link monster, or any like dark deck in general that felt like they could abuse this card and it actually worked pretty well. It just stinks. I kind of just wish this card was specifically, linked to the Phantom Knight specifically in some way, shape, or form in terms of material. But I think it's just a little bit too good for its own good, and I think we should honestly see this card go just because of its genericism. I don't think that's a word, but whatever. Next, we'll move to some Thunder Dragon stuff. So we're going to start with Saryuja Skuldred. This is a card I've been hearing for a long, long time. Ever since we have combo decks, we've seen this card be abused. The fact that if you just have a deck that can spam 4 different monsters on the field, this card will probably be in your extra deck because of its generic ability to extend. So, I actually don't think this card should go completely. I think it's just too degenerate to be able to resolve 2 of these. So I think for the sake, and I think this is a pretty common, I think a lot of these are pretty common opinions, but I think for the sake of not just getting away with this card, because I think it is still cool, just putting it at 1 so that you cannot cycle through multiple of these in the same turn. That is when it starts feeling too degenerate. And there's enough degeneracy with just that first effect, but the fact that they're not hard once returns, and you can just make a new one, do it again, cycle through another 4 cards in your deck, it just feels too overpowered. Plus, being able to just special summon another monster from your hand, any monster, no restriction, is just a little bit too powerful for me. I think putting it at 1 is probably the way to go, and see where it goes from there. I think decks will still play it. If Thunder Dragon's still playable, they'll still probably play it, but we'd have to see how much that hinders what it does. But yeah, so we'll put Saryuja at 1. They'll say that for now. And we have Thunder Dragon Colossus. So this is one I haven't seen actually too many people talking about that much. See, the problem is I think if they ban this card, Thunder Dragon is just dead. And the Thunder Guard Dragon deck just becomes Guard Dragon. So I think probably putting this at 1 is probably the way to go. Which doesn't sound like much, but most lists are playing, I believe, 2. So I think putting it at 1 will kind of force them into an awkward position. Is if they're going to make a turn 1 board with it, and you just out that 1, they're just out. They don't reestablish this. They don't re-lock you out of, your searching mid to late game. It's just at the beginning. And if you can out this, it's gone for good, essentially. So I think you're probably putting this at 1 is the way to go, and especially if we do see Guard Dragon stuff get hit, this being at 1 would definitely put them in a really tough spot, because then I think Thunder Dragons would struggle with finding what to even play. You can't play a pure Thunder Dragon build, because you're just gonna end up with too many Thunder Dragon cards, and if your opponent outs the 1 Colossus, you're just stuck after that. So I don't know. I think putting it to 1 is probably the best way to go. It's just so incredibly powerful. A 2600 body that locks you out of searching and protects itself from destruction is very, very strong. So I'm thinking putting this card at 1 is the way to go. I don't think it should be completely banned, but at 1 I think is pretty good. Then we'll move to Guard Dragon Elpie. We'll move to some of the Guard Dragon stuff. We actually got a couple cards here, so we're going to go through all this stuff here. Whoops, we'll get there. Chaos Dragon Levianeer, White Dragon Wyver Booster, and also Black Dragon Collapse Serpent, Guard Dragon Agripane, and Guard Dragon Elpie. So I actually would love to see White Dragon and Black Dragon both go to 1 or 2 for sure. I'm kind of leaning towards 1 because I think they're still playable. Obviously, just summon one, search the other, and that's at least a really nice extender. But I think at multiples, they just become way too abusable every single turn. When you know your opponent has one loaded in hand for next turn, you're just oh, they're going to +2 again. And then some. So I think Wyver Booster and Collapser can go to 1, I think, a piece. I think that will put them at their best potential to be still good cards, but not amazing cards. And then Chaos Dragon Levianeer, I think, also should go to 1. This is another card where it's so incredibly strong, but I think what makes it the most strong is that you just can play 3 copies of it. You got 3 seconds light for good draw power, and you've got 3 copies of this. You see it so often, but if the only way you get to this is either by drawing it, hard drawing a 1 of, or getting it off of, oh man, the one card that when it's sent to graveyard, it banishes 1 from deck, and then it can add it to hand when he himself is banished. Can't remember its name. I could picture it though. But those being realistically the only 2 ways to get him out, and in Thunder Dragons, I think makes him a pretty good piece. Or actually, you could search him off of Brotar. That's that too. But only having 1 is actually really nice as well, because once they go through that 1, it's gone. Usually that's all it really takes. But I think this will lower consistency a lot. Putting all 3 of these at 1 with lower consistency. You're thinking about, you just got to think about, they're losing 6 cards in their deck. They have to replace that with something. They're going to play a heavy Thunder Dragon build, which we've seen can struggle. Definitely more than this build. So I think putting him at 1, I don't think he should be completely gone, but at 1. And then for Elpie and Agripane. So Elpie can search you big, really nice extenders. whereas Agripane summons the straight up big boys. And because of that, I think Agripane should be banned, and I think LP is honestly fine. Like, it's still really good, like really, really good, but without being able to like double with Agripane, it really limits what like LP's ceiling is. And then the fact that like LP can possibly get you to one of those strong extra deck monsters, but the fact that like Agripane just drops them for free, I think is a little bit too busted. Just a free like 3200 Omni Negate is just a little bit too good for my book. So I'm going to say ban Agripane. I think LP's not too busted, but I think banning Agripane is probably the way to go there. So I'm going to say leave LP alone, ban Agripane, Wyvern Burster and Collapse to 1, and Levianeer to 1. Really hitting that Thunder Dragon core. Now, I actually don't expect all this to happen, but I think in some way, shape, or form, we'll see one of these cards. I think Levianeer to 1 is pretty likely. I think maybe both of these. Well, we are seeing 2 reprints of these coming up, right? Am I going crazy? Yeah. We are seeing reprints of these coming up, so maybe to sell those, they don't want to hit them just yet. I don't know. And the Guard Dragons are fairly new to our metagame, so they might want to leave those alone as well. And I think we're getting like support for them as well. So I think definitely Levianeer probably should be hit, and then we'll see about these guys. But I think these probably won't be hit, but I think Agripane should be banned. They'll move to some dangers. The only 2 dangers that are really of consequence to me are Nessie and Jackalope. They're the 2 best ones by far. I think Nessie by far is the best one, and Jackalope is the second best one. And honestly, what I'd like to see, so we already know that like Tsuchinoko and possibly some of these other dangers will be in the gold Sark tins. So I think probably the best thing to do is maybe just limit the number you can play without banning them completely. Maybe just like, I don't know, Nessie to 1, or maybe just like both of them to 2, and just, because I think if you can't play them in a high number, a really high number, they become less abusable. In my opinion, you're not discarding other ones out of your hand. You have to be playing them in a true archetype that doesn't mind being discarded. You aren't seeing multiple in the same hand to be able to plop, to just be able to plus, 2 or 3 before you even start your actual combo or anything like that. I think limiting the number overall is probably the way to go. I still think it might be a little too early, and I don't think Konami will really go after these. If they do, it'll be small ones, like maybe like Jackalope to 1 or Jackalope to and Nessie to 2 or something. But I think Nessie could be a really good selling point for the Gold Sark tins, so I don't think it'll actually be there. Then we move to some Stryker stuff. So multi-roll, Engage, Widow Anchor, Shark Cannon. People think Shark Cannon may be too good because without Shark Cannon, Strikers are very, very susceptible to being OTK'd by more offensive decks. Widow Anchor being an insanely good disruption card. Engage being just like a +2, like almost every time you activate it. 2 busted, and searching every card in the archetype, and not once per turn. And multi-roll, getting you back spells from your graveyard every single turn, and also making it so your spells cannot be reacted to. So, in my opinion, multi-roll to 1 and engage to 2. Leave the other 2 alone, but I think that right there will put such a dent in the consistency that you don't have a 3 of them engage anymore. You don't have 3 multi-roll, so that even if you don't see engage, you still have a good chance of just seeing one of these and just hard using one of these in one turn to just get, Widow Anchor's back or Shark Cannon's back, and then just like stall until you draw into stuff that's a little better, or until Shizuku filters through the cards you actually need. Stuff like that. I think at 1, that like, oh, if I out this card, like I should be good, right? Other than maybe the 1 Kagari bringing it back. Which is pretty good. It forces them to be much more conscious of their resources and how they use this card, being much more careful, which is already like a problem for them with the 1 Kagari. I think engage to 2. So I think one of the biggest problems, and something you'll hear, is when people talk about like when Strikers open up 2 engage, it's like impossible to like just get through the massive amount of advantage they're going to build off of that. So I think putting it to 2 really just kind of erases that problem. I mean, the amount of times they're going to see both engages, the only 2 engages, are just going to be so minimal that like 1 engage is still powerful, but you really won't be seeing 2 all that often. So I think that's the way to go, and I think that consistency will make it so, Widow Anchor at 3 and Shark Cannon at 3 are fine. You won't be getting to them as consistently. You won't be getting as consistently or as fast, because you do still have Shizuku. to search it on the end phase, and then next turn you do stuff. But like I said, the deck's already susceptible to OTKs, so you could just be getting OTK'd in that period, or just so far behind that it's too late, right? So I think that's the best way to take on Strykers. And then lastly, we have Salomon Greats. We're only going to really be looking at Gazelle and Circle. These are the only two cards I really see people truly talking about. I either think Salomon Greats are going to get like nicked here, or I think they're going to get like hit pretty hard on the next ban list. If they get nicked, I can easily see either Gazelle or Circle to 1. One or the other. I think 2, both of them to 1 makes the deck like hurts the consistency like way too much. But at least if you put like Gazelle to 1, you've still got like 7 copies, because you could play 3 Circle and 3 of the I can't even remember the card. Signet Mining? Yeah, 3 Signet Mining to still search it. So you still have like essentially 7 ways to get to it. So that's like still fine. But I think if you put them both there, then you've only got 5 ways to get to it, and you only have 1 copy. So I think it extremely limits what he can do. One or the other, and then maybe on the next ban list we'll have both hit in some capacity, something like that. But Salomon Greats are an awkward deck to kind of hit on the ban list, because none of their cards are like busted, but all their cards do like something. I think Gazelle and Circle are the most to blame for like their consistent, top play and their ability to just grind so hard. So I think those two would get hit more than anything else. Hit the consistency, make it so they have to play a little more awkwardly, a little more often. And then we move to some random cards. So we have Mystic Mine here. I would love Mystic Mine to get banned, but I just don't think it's a good look for Konami to release a card and then like a couple months later like just admit that like the card's too good and just ban it immediately. You know what I'm saying? Like 2 months later, you can't just like admit that like, yeah, we made a mistake. We put a card too good out there. Let's ban it. But I could see it going to 1. And I think going to 1 is not a complete cop-out. We still have it, but I think it eliminates some of those decks. Like we see True Dracos, we see Strykers, we see all these decks that play like, that really function only under like 1 monster, even Orchist. But not really as much, not playing this kind of style, but playing just like 3 copies of this, because they already play a field spell, they've already got 2 terraforming. Why not play 3 copies of this? Because this card lets you beat decks going second. It means that they just, like, their board is nothing. Their board is non-existent. And then you just slowly and steadily break them down. So I think Mystic Mine to 1 is, I think, the way to go. If you're able to like out the 1 Mystic Mine, they won't get it back. Doing this will essentially eliminate the Mystic Mine burn deck, because the one thing that they can do is like if you do out 1 Mystic Mine, they could have another, and if you out that one, they could have another, right? But if you out the 1, it's engraved. Like, what do? Like, they probably just lose. So I think putting it at 1 is probably the best way to go. It makes it a little less abusable for the decks that do abuse it, and I think it just kills Mystic Mine Burn, because I don't think we should have that deck really in our game. So I think 1, I would love for it to be completely banned though. Dino Wrestler Pankrotop. So not really talking about this card getting banned, but it did go to 2 in the OCG, and I know a lot of people like to infer our lists from the OCG's lists. 1, Pankrotop is still fairly new-ish. I guess it's been like, 8 months? Around there? No, this came out in Savage Strike, right? Can't even remember if this is Savage Strike or the Fusion set. I can't remember. But still, he's a very good card. He's a staple side deck card for almost every single deck. It's just such a powerful going second card. Just getting you 2-for-1s like it ain't nobody's business. But I think overall, 3 is fine. I mean, I'm playing Subterrors right now, a deck that sucks at going second, and I only play 2 of him in my side deck. I have a weirder side deck, but I don't even think he's a necessity at 3. And I think there can be a lot of creativity. I don't need him in the side deck at 3. He's a good card, but I don't think he's busted. Like, unless we just fall into a situation where literally every duelist has 3 of him in their side deck, then maybe put him at 2, just so that people can't do that anymore and are forced to be a little more creative. But until then, I think 3 is fine. I don't really expect him to get hit yet. And then the last card to put on here is Super Poly, because let's be honest, should there be a card like this in our game? Probably not, but it's not used by any meta decks like at all. The only decks that really can take advantage of this are some of the rogue strategies you look at, or the tier 2 stuff. You're looking at Subterrors, True Dracos if they do play an extra deck. You're looking at like possibly Altergeist with an extra deck, like stuff like that. All these stun decks. So that's why I really don't think, like, yeah, should it exist? No, probably not. It's probably too powerful to really be allowed to be existing in our game. But at the same time, meta decks, the way meta decks work nowadays, they need their extra decks, so they really can't afford to be playing this card, especially in the main. If they happen to play something it doesn't work on, they can't be playing dead cards. So I think it's actually fine because it's only really going to see play in those roguish tier 2 and below strategies. So I think that's pretty much it. I don't think I have any more cards. Nope, that's my last thumbnail. Sorry for showing that. And I think that's pretty much it, guys. So let me know if you think there are any cards I missed talking about that you think should be on the ban list that are currently not. And let me know if you disagree with any of the things I said here. If you think some of this stuff either shouldn't be on or should be hit harder than I thought. I already have a lot of hits on here. I don't think they'll all happen at all. I mean, we are about to be after the competitive season. So new competitive season, Konami might want to start fresh. A bunch of new products coming up. A nice new heavy ban list to, like, really level the playing field going into these new products. Who knows? But let me know your guys' thoughts. I'm really interested. Sorry it's a longer video, but ban list prediction videos tend to go a little longer. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I love you. Peace. Thanks for watching. I love you. Peace. I'm going crazy. Bye.